Our topic for this PowerPoint is the functional area of self, and we'll be using the Essentials book pages 218 to 237. Back in Chapter 5, when you talked about the early childhood learning theorist, one of the ones mentioned was Abraham Maslow and his hierarchy of needs. And of course, he talked about meeting children's basic needs and their physiological needs. And within that is included a need for security and love and belonging and self-esteem and self-actualization. And so his theory suggested that in order for people to reach their full potential, all of those needs must be met. And so as an early childhood educator, it's our responsibility to work to meet a child's self-esteem and self-actualization needs. And we do that by getting to know each child individually and accepting and acknowledging or appreciating who every child is as an individual. In this chapter, it talks about several different subcategories, such as appreciating each child, promoting their sense of self, developing a racial identity, and guiding children in expressing feelings, and then helping each child to flourish. On pages 218 to 227, it talks about appreciating each child. And as early childhood educators, some of the things that we really need to understand is that experiences are what shape our identities over a course of time. And when we're talking about early childhood, that is when children begin to develop their self-concept, their abilities, their attitudes, the values that all will come to define them. Children learn about these things and learn about themselves. They begin to construct their own identity within the context of their relationships and interactions with either their family, their community, the people and places and things that they experience, and their action and reaction from other people. What helps to develop that sense of belonging is the feeling of acceptance and the ability to develop secure attachments and trust with the people who care about them and are taking care of them. When a child feels safe and secure or supportive, then they begin to build confidence. And that confidence is confidence to explore, confidence to figure out who they are, confidence to take risk or try to solve problems. And the relationships among the children and you as the caregiver and their family plays a key role in helping to form this identity. One of the really important viewpoints I think that we should have as early childhood caregivers is not so much that we are the teacher, the one in charge of the child's educational experience, but we should view the children as an active participant in their education and in the learning environment and allow them some freedom to make decisions, because as they gain the ability to do those things and are successful in that, that just breeds more confidence. It's really important for us to understand developmental milestones so that we can select activities and materials that not only the children will enjoy and learn from, but that they can be successful at. Because every success that they have helps to build their confidence level and their sense of self. With infants, some of the things that you can do to help develop a sense of trust in your relationship with them is to respond quickly and calmly when they have a need. Make sure that you provide lots of opportunities for them to have one-on-one time with a caring adult, opportunities for them to be near other infants so that they can watch and see and begin to build those relationships. Make sure that they have opportunities to practice self-help skills, things like feeding themselves when they're ready, dressing, even as simple as putting a hat on their own head. Um, and then make sure you include photos of them around the classroom. And if they have a special favorite item, that they're allowed to bring that into the room. They also really enjoy seeing themselves in mirrors, so having non-breakable mirrors down low that they can look at themselves and explore in those is a perfect idea. For your toddlers, again, responding to their needs quickly and calmly, giving them lots of opportunities to be with other toddlers where they can practice playing together and listening and talking to one another. Nurture and respond to them during daily routine and transitions. Often, the simple routines of the day, and especially transitions, can be difficult for toddlers, and so you really want to pay close attention and offer some assistance and care during that time. Um, Posting pictures of them with their families, um, making sure that their work is displayed around the classroom so that they can see their own work. They also like to have special items from home, and that's really important for them. It's really an essential piece that you give them some freedom to explore their independence. Toddlers are really seeking that out, and so we need to support that. For your preschoolers, many of the same things above, like pictures posted and responding to them quickly and calmly. But you can do things like creating all about me boards or all about me books where they're allowed to put pictures of all of their favorite things. You can do charts where you chart out everybody's favorite food or everybody's favorite pastime and hang those around the room. Making sure that when you are posting their artwork or their work, that you ask them which pieces they would like to display in the classroom. As far as gender identity goes, it's really important that we understand it is perfectly normal and acceptable for children to explore and imitate people of the opposite gender than themselves. When they are doing this, they are really just exploring what it feels like to be that person that they care about, and that is a big part of their life, whether it's their mother, their father, grandmother, grandfather, brother, sister, whoever it is. The little boys may want to go over and rock the babies or cook dinner, and the little girls might want to pretend to be the dad or, play ball. Those things are okay. They're just exploring that various identity through those different gender role play activities. As far as approaches to learning, beginning with birth, children are able to develop relationships with adults. They begin to develop trust and explore the world. And so there are specific characteristics that will determine a child's approach to learning. And some of those include things like interest and joy in learning, the engagement or ability to focus, being able to be flexible in problem solving, tolerance for frustration. And so all of those characteristics will really help to determine what a child's approach to learning is. And so on page 223, there are some ideas of ways that we can really support children's approach to learning. And some of the things that are really important, I think, for us to know, not only because it allows us to support that approach to learning, but it also allows us to help build that positive self-concept, is that we should focus mainly on a child's effort, not their achievement or their capability. It's really important for us to acknowledge when they have tried, not whether or not they have succeeded, but did they try, and to give them very specific feedback, especially when something is not working, so that we can help them to figure out what might work. We need to give them time to really engage in activities rather than rushing them from one thing to another thing. And we need to nurture their creativity, which we talked about when we talked about creative. We need to always be open to their ideas of how to solve a problem or how to use materials or view a certain situation. And then we need to make sure that we offer them lots of choices. Again, all of that's on page 223 in your textbook. It's really important for us to acknowledge children's strengths and what their challenges might be. In Chapter 5 again, Howard Gardner talked about the multiple intelligence and ways that children's abilities are represented by unique talents or personality traits, so forth. But children are really often going to excel in one or two areas, and that may be representative of their particular learning style. But where they may excel in one or two areas, there may be another area that they struggle in. And so it's really important that we acknowledge where their strengths are and encourage those strengths and assist them in building those areas of struggle. We do need to consider family circumstances, because families actually provide children with their very first bonding experience. Those are their first relationships. That's where they first learn to trust and often to mistrust. And so we really want to help families learn how to preserve children's innocence while offering them protection and love and encouragement and guidance. And so we have to understand that these family relationships and circumstances really will impact the children. And so on page 225 it talks about some things that may happen in family circumstance that could affect how a child is feeling about themselves and where their self-concept is, and what things we can do to assist in helping children and families through these circumstances. And then we're going to go back and talk about temperament for just a second, because that was the one where you watch the video clips about the fearful, flexible, and feisty temperament types, and how every child has a unique temperament, and how can we work with each of those three temperament types. And so you did your discussion board on that. And so it's really important for us to understand that not all children are alike. We have 20 small children possibly in our classroom, maybe 8 if we're infant toddler, but all of those children are very unique individuals, and we have to respond to them as such. So you've heard me say sense of self or self-worth. And essentially what sense of self is their identity. It's what we associate with ourselves, even from infancy. And we kind of gain these ideas based upon people's perceptions of us and what we hear about ourselves or what we come to feel about ourselves. Self-esteem refers to people's perception of their own self-worth. And that may be impacted in children by their perception of whether or not I'm lovable or whether or not I'm capable. And again, those things come from their interactions with others and how they're made to feel and what they're told about themselves. Of course, your sense of self and your self-esteem develops and changes over time. It doesn't always stay the same. It may change with various phases of our life and various experiences that we encounter. But children who have a healthy self-esteem, they're able to withstand those setbacks a little easier than children who don't have a healthy self-esteem. They're also able to accept new challenges. They take on responsibilities because they feel capable. They're not fearful of failure. And they know even if they make a mistake or even if there is a failure, they can come back from that. So there are lots of ways we can boost children's self-esteem. Of course, build on their strengths. Give them lots of opportunities to demonstrate those things that they're really good at. Help them explore their talents and their interests, and then help them develop those things that they are wanting to develop. It's really important for us to listen to children and be in tune to what they're communicating about their sense of worth, so that we can quickly begin to turn that around if they're feeling negative about themselves. Be supportive and kind, and talk to them in a positive tone. Enjoy them and make learning fun. help them make friends, laugh at our own mistakes, and admit that we make mistakes. Make sure that we greet them and focus on their positive attributes and give them opportunities for being successful. Pages 231 and 232 talk about developing a sense of racial identity. And our role as an early childhood educator is to help children gain tolerance and acceptance of people from different races, cultures, or ethnicities. Children don't really understand the concept of racial groups, but they do notice differences among people. And so it's our role to help teach children through our modeling and through materials in the classroom and through activities that we may provide for them, that we would teach them that acceptance and that tolerance and help them to understand that even though we may be different, there are still many more things about us that are the same, and that we should be kind and compassionate to everyone. And so it's really about how we do that. And probably our greatest way is through modeling, modeling that acceptance ourselves and making sure that we provide a positive atmosphere for every culture, for every race, for every ethnicity that's incorporated into our classroom. We want them to learn that every person and every group is worthy, rather than that they are feared or looked down upon, or that there are biases against those races and ethnicities. In the green box on page 229, there's a discussion about being a coach or being a cheerleader. And of course, when you think about the roles of a coach, the role of a coach is to teach their team, to guide them, to help them to learn to work towards a goal. And a cheerleader is someone who's offering praise and constant acknowledgement of what they are doing. And so what we have to think about is praise and that constant accolades conditions a child to work for that instead of working to accomplish the goal. What we want children to be able to do is to work towards completing a goal, to work towards completing a task, rather than to work for that so that someone will acknowledge it. And it's really clear that we as adults, when we praise children for things that are seemingly inborn traits like being smart, it actually is creating the opposite effect, because children have grown to know by all of that praise that they are smart. They're afraid to ever make the mistake of not being successful in that category, and so they'll be fearful of taking on greater challenges because they want to keep that praise coming, and so they're going to limit themselves rather than reaching out to take new risks. A child who is being coached, who is being taught to take those risks and to work towards goals, even if there's some failure along the way, excuse me, they are becoming more confident in their abilities. They are becoming more aware that they're working for a purpose. They're not working to hear you've done a good job. And so instead of saying things like good job, you want to give very specific feedback, just like a coach would. If a football player makes a really horrible play, the coach isn't going to tell him good job. The coach is going to tell him what he could have done differently to be successful at that play. And so what we want to say is things like, thank you for helping your friend pick up in the block area. Thank you for putting all the dishes and plates on the table. Thank you for helping me by picking up the toys in the dramatic play area. We want to be very specific. We don't want to offer empty praise so that the children are just working for that. We want to give specific feedback so that they are working towards goals. So there are a few pages from 232 to 234 that talk about helping children learn to express their feelings. In the beginning, they don't even have words for the feelings, and so we have to help them associate a name with what they're feeling. But then we want to make sure that we give them lots of opportunity to identify those feelings within themselves and others. So maybe that's through our conversation with them. Like, I had so much fun riding the bike. I bet I was smiling the whole time. That might mean that I'm happy. Helping them to identify those basic emotions, and then often it's really beneficial in a classroom to use feeling charts or picture books or emotion faces to help them associate what they're feeling with a facial expression. And then acknowledge when they talk about their feelings. If they say they're sad, say, I heard you say that you're sad today. Can you tell me a little bit about why you feel so sad? And then making sure that they understand that at some point everybody does have negative feelings, and it's not a time for us to be able to hurt somebody or insult someone. But if you feel angry or hurt, you feel angry or hurt. You need to use your words and express that. And then giving them lots of space to work through those negative emotions. One of the things that we can do to help them understand how to do that is model patience and calmness when we discuss our feelings with the children. And then practice feeling-related activities, even drawing out feelings faces or role modeling or role-playing situations where there might be a lot of emotions. On figure 45 on page 234, there's a whole list of emotion words that we can teach children and help them learn how to express those various emotions in an appropriate manner. So in tying up the discussion about self, we're going to talk a little bit about how we help each child flourish. And of course, if someone were to ask us as caregivers, or if we were to interview parents and ask them what we most wanted for children, whether it's our children or the children in our classrooms, what we ultimately want, I think, is for children to become happy, healthy, feel loved, feel secure, and be well balanced. We want our children to be everything that they can possibly be. And so what we've really come to realize is that there are two factors that can really help children flourish, and that is if we can instill optimism and resiliency in them. And of course, optimism is just the belief that good things will happen. And that any negative events that occur are just minor setbacks and that we can overcome those. And this type of optimism involves motivation and persistence, because generally people who are optimistic and resilient and motivated are people who have a healthy a healthy self-esteem. And they accept challenges and are willing to take those extra risks. And they're just very motivated individuals who believe that they are in control of their life, and that will allow them to flourish. There are lots of other suggestions on page 235 for ways that we can help children become more optimistic. But I think one of the things that stands out to me is using lots of humor and laughter and encouraging positive feelings. I think sometimes as caregivers and as parents, we become overwhelmed with the day-to-day tasks. We get caught up in the daily routine, making sure everybody's diapered, making sure everybody's fed, and we forget to have a joyful time with the children. And that joy really helps to bond the relationship and helps to set a positive atmosphere. There's many other ideas on page 235 to look at also. But then resiliency. And resiliency is just when children or adults can keep going even when things do not seem to be happening the way that they should. They are resilient, and they get up and they try again. And so some of the characteristics that you would possess if you are learning to be resilient are on page 236, and that is control and challenge and commitment. And so when you think about control, these children or individuals feel like they're in charge of their life. And so they're learning to make decisions, and they don't feel like everything's just happening to them. They're in control of it. They also, with challenge, view mistakes as a learning opportunity. It doesn't mean you failed. It means there's a challenge. We have to learn a new way. It's not failure. And then commitment means that they are actively willing to follow through and committed to providing meaning for their lives. And so we can help children do this by allowing them to experience some failures, but learning from that mistake what they can do better and keep trying. And then encourage them to have some, they want to say mantra, but some, what I say is my motto for life. What I say to myself to say, yes, I can be successful with this, or yes, I can overcome this. Helping them to have a motto for themselves. This is really important to me, and this is how I'm going to overcome these things. And so pages 236 and 237 talk a little more about ideas for how you can help children to become resilient.